morning. First of all, I want to actually thank Alan. We have been on the with the Touch Summit for the third year, and I have seen how it had grown over the years. You know, we started in Bangkok, and now we're here in Lisbon. So again, thank you, Alan. And today I want to talk to you about something very interesting. It's something that last year in Istanbul, we came and spoke about a developer ecosystem, you know, how we have built it and what were some of the criteria and, you know, some of the, and we had a case study with our telco at that time. So from that to today, this year, we actually won the GSMA Best Technology Platform, which is being used by Dialog IdeaMart, which is one of the Axiata operators. And I'm going to talk about, you know, what's the story behind? How did we go about doing this? How did we really build that ecosystem? And how are they making revenue out of it? So, APIs make money. How many of you think that's correct? Really? So, for us, what we have seen, most of the operators have got onto this bandwagon of we have an API system. We also are investing heavily on API ecosystems. But if you really look at, are they making money out of that? So APIs don't make money. It may be a surprise for most of you, but the services is what really makes money. So how do we build this ecosystem? How do we really build this ecosystem on getting services that will be used? I think Tony talked a little bit before about the whole A2P market, and this is what we have seen growing extensively. So extending innovation capabilities. So this is what we are talking about. And the story behind the technology platform that we introduced with Axiata, and not only with Axiata, we have, you know, Vodafone Fiji using it. We also have M1 in Singapore using it. So we have multiple operators using this platform. And really the capability behind that is looking at these three areas. It's a long-tail business model, increasing internal efficiency, and also creating enterprise services. I think that's where these three things comes together, and that's how you actually build a service innovation. So I'm going to talk about three factors for driving innovation. First, we'll talk about innovation by all. What does that mean, innovation by all? We all talk about developer ecosystems. What we saw when we used this capability, we came up with two other areas. Developers that we all know about, but we also built a non-developer ecosystems that can really use these APIs and create services out of that. Then the enterprises. So we actually coined this, an area we call the Northbound innovation layer. So we said, Northbound innovation layer can actually sit on multiple API platforms. So when we go into a carrier to a telco, we will talk to them and say, what's your API ecosystem looks like? They said, okay, we invested hugely. We spent multi-million dollars in going onto an API platform. But are you making money? Really, no. So that's where we come into play. We say, okay, let's work together. Let's build a northbound innovation layer. And I'll go a little bit detail what we mean in the next couple of slides. So we have a developer portal. Then we have a non-developer self-service ecosystem. I will actually take you through one app that we have built here. So this is a web services, Webrtc application. You can see this application is only 5 steps. We actually build the application. You can see it on your right side, the application being built. Then you actually see the simulation of that. And this application is to create a Webrtc call that you can take it for insurers. So what happens, it's a mesh-up application with USSD as well as Webrtc built together. So what it did was it created that I'm getting an appointment set up with an insurance agent to have a chat. And what happens is the insurance agent actually goes out and calls me to the time that I gave you that I'm free to have that chat. So what happens with Webrtc, the traditional ways, we have actually turned it around that you can actually now, as a user, monetize the operator network and create the services on that. So that's one. Second, a platform to build successful businesses. Again, this is another interesting part. As a developer, if I'm building applications, it's not about counting the number of API calls. It's not about how much I pay for each API call. It's about the application that I build that bring value to my customers. So that's what we talk about. It's not about the number of API calls. It's about creating that ecosystem that you can build value out of your network assets that you're exposing. And the last and the most important part, engagement with the app creators. So for the engagement with the app creators, we have three things: incentives, engagement, and platform. So incentives is something very crucial. When we worked with Dialog Asiata, it was very interesting. We went and spoke to them and said, okay, we have this platform, we want to work with you to bring this to the developers. Initial reaction was, we don't see an ROI on that. So if we said, we don't see an ROI, we said, okay, let's work on that ROI. We went through a series of workshops with them. We built an ecosystem. We said, okay, we want you to revenue share 70% of your revenue with the developers. So that was the turning point. That was the turning point where they were able to actually incentivize their developers 70% of the revenue. As soon as that happened, we saw a huge ecosystem being built. Engagement was very key. I'm going to show you a couple of activities, from the TAD heads to workshops to helping the developers to build that ecosystem was something very good. And then the platform. The platform was an end-to-end platform. So for an operator to be able to service 2,000 to 3,000 app developers, you need to have a platform which is an end-to-end. From onboarding a developer all the way into revenue reconciliation. It's completely managed through the platform. So to have this more than 3,000 developers, our operators, they only have 3 people who is managing the whole platform, which is something very key. So let me take you something area, I think. So we ran TAD Hack Sri Lanka. So this is the location we had. It was facing the Indian Ocean, and we had over 100 developers coming, and we were actually hacking for 2 days. And some of the applications that came out of that are being funded by angel networks. We have 3 applications that are going into being funded, and it's in the early stage. So what we did, and you see the CIO of Dialog was the keynote speaker for that, and we were talking about how they built the Dialog Asiata API ecosystem. For TAD Hack, we had over 500 registrations. We had over 150 teams, and we couldn't handle all of them. So we actually had over 100 developers hacking in 3 locations. So we actually ran the TAD Hack in Colombo, in Jaffna, and in Bangladesh. And the key is that engagement that we have done is creating the ecosystem with the developers. That really brought the revenue for the operator. Now, it's the same platform that we are running with Dialog Asiata is close to about 5 locations now, and we are bringing these developers into those locations, and also we are bringing those applications from those locations into other operators. So we have built a complete developer ecosystem. If you go to our dev space, which we call the developer ecosystem, you can actually register and see what's happening, and there's a lot of resources as well as opportunities that we are looking to kind of bring developers into the markets that we are in. So just a sneak preview of what we have done. So please stop by at our booth and talk to us. I also have our Chief Business Development Officer here. So talk to us and how, come and talk to us, how we can work with you and really bring this ecosystem and taking out into not only the operators, but also the developers that we are working with. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Dinesh? Again, please stop Dean asking all the questions.
Dinesh, I mean, you guys have done an amazing job in Sri Lanka, specifically getting operators to agree on the 70-30 revenue split. Talking amongst other operators outside in other parts of the world, what sort of reaction have you had to that sort of standardization or that level of the high proportion going to the developer rather than the carrier?
You mean in the other locations? Yeah, so not only in Sri Lanka, but most of the operators that we are discussing, we actually proposing to them, if you really want to build that ecosystem, if you're really serious about it, if you just want to have an API system because my competitor is having, then it's not the right thing to do. But if you really want, if you're really committed for your developers, and if you really want to make a difference in building a developer ecosystem, the majority of the revenue you must try to share with the developers. So, so we have, I don't want to mention a couple of names, but we have between about 60 to 70% we can still convince some of the operators to do that.
And it's important, I think, to point out that that's only where you're implementing a rev share with the developer. I mean, you've got another model as well, where targeting enterprises or just the telco's customers, and they're just paying for the usage of those services that are exposed through APIs. Exactly. So there's a couple of business models. I think one of the big untapped areas, we keep saying developer. We think it's some abstract concept that out there developing applications that we do a 70-30 split on, but actually massive untapped potential with the most operators, it's all their customers. I think that's been a big success area for Dialog.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions? If not, again, they'll be here throughout the whole of the event and have a stand in the exhibition area. So again, show our appreciation for a leading case study. Thank you so much, Dinesh.